Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Adobe Live, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on this wonderful Monday morning. My name is Alexis Bustos, and today, Mr. XD himself, Howard Pinsky, is in the house.
Hey,
hello.
Hey, Alexis, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Howard?
I'm good. It's weird being in this seat versus the hosting seat. I was so ready to just like jump in there and start hosting. I'm like, no, it's all you.
Oh, it's all me. It's all me. I'm ready. I'm ready. You know, it's great. We're doing you hosted my first. Now I'm hosting you.
That's true.
It's one big circle of Adobe Live. Hello everyone in the chat. We are really excited for you to join us today. We're feeling really good. The energy's great in the house. Let's check out the schedule and let's see what's been happening this morning, because the exact same schedule is going to happen tomorrow. So why don't we take a look? It looks like we hung out this morning doing some creative challenges with, let's see, who were we with? We were with Jason and Jesus, and oh my gosh, we did so many creative challenges. We're gonna have a creative challenge after this, actually, hosted by Jesse Showalter for the XD stream. If anyone isn't aware of what these design creative challenges are, you know, here's your time to learn a little bit. These are where you can get started with just bite-sized projects in XD and Photoshop and Illustrator and Premiere, and they'll be going on for about 2 weeks at a time. And really get in there if you have been, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I love these challenges. You know, over the course of this pandemic, we've had so many people ask us, and even when I was hosting Adobe Max, we had a question, you know, how can I can't go to school, I don't have resources, how can I learn whatever it might be, whether it's XD or Premiere, video editing, whatever it is. And daily challenges every single day, Monday to Friday, we run these things on a variety of applications, and it's wonderful. It's all free. It's fantastic.
They're so wonderful. And anybody who asks, how do I get started? It is the perfect thing to get started. Yep. What's going on in the chat here? We got Voodoo Val hanging tight. We got Jack and Laura. Hello. Let us know where you're hanging out. You know, we're all kind of locked into our own spaces. So let's make this community happen. And just a reminder, if you're watching from YouTube, love it. Love you over there on YouTube, but come on over to Behance. We have a great chat going here. We're all talking to you, and you get to check out these projects, hanging out, and let's get started. What's going on? What are we making today, Howard?
I don't know. We'll see. It'll be a fun time. I'm going to be doing some sort of a gaming experience. You know, I'm a big gamer. Don't play as much as I did in the past, but I love gaming, and I love gaming experiences because it really allows you to kind of break the bounds and go crazy with colors and background blurs and a lot of fun stuff. And especially with 3D transforms, I think we're going to have a lot of fun today over the course of the next 2 days.
Oh, I'm so excited. And you know what? I'm really excited to get learning with all these new features. You know, I don't know if letsxd.com right now. Let's just do it right now. Let's get started and tell those people what they're here for.
Yeah, so if anyone is new to XD, and just a little intro of myself, again, usually I'm not in this seat, so I honestly didn't prepare an intro, but my name's Howard Pinsky. I work at Adobe as a XD evangelist, and I run the Let's XD website. Ton of videos on Adobe XD, some beginner videos, some advanced videos, a lot of stuff on some of the new features like 3D transforms, scroll groups, stacks, and all that fun stuff. Val says, did someone say gaming? I know Val's a big gamer, so this will be fun. And speaking of people in the chat, I do want to bring a lot of you in to this experience because I'd love to get some community feedback, ideas, you know, what kind of things you would like to see in a gaming experience. So throw some ideas in the chat. I'll be taking a look. So yeah, I run Let's XD. I have also a bunch of videos on YouTube. So if you're looking to learn XD, head over to letsxd.com. All right. So before we dive into the actual designing, a big question I get asked a lot, and a question I see almost every single time I'm hosting Adobe Live, is how do I get started with a project? You know, how do I get ideas? How do I get inspiration and that sort of thing? And two places that I almost go every single time are Behance and Dribbble.
Mm-hmm.
And it's honestly as easy as just, hopping into the search box and just looking up. In this case, it's gaming. We're going to be doing a gaming experience and just browsing some ideas. And if you're a brand new designer, I don't like to use the word copy, but if you're a brand new designer and you're looking to build up your skills and you're not necessarily working on commercial projects at the moment, or you're not going to be selling the work that you're going to be doing, feel free to kind of replicate some of the things that you see on Behance or Dribbble. Again, if you are replicating or copying some work, don't sell it, don't use it for commercial purposes, but use it to build up your skills. Looking at this, for example, maybe, replicate this sidebar, which is beautiful. The colors are fantastic. The contrast is great. It just kind of flows and looks really nice. And as I'm designing and looking for ideas and inspiration, I'll do this, right? I'll look at a project like this and I'll kind of pick one or two things that I'm really liking from this. The sidebar looks great. So eventually in this project, I might kind of go for that. Even things like, if you take a look at the left over here, let me zoom in here. There's a little tiny button. It just says version 1, but that gradient, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice gradient. I definitely want to bring in some gradients. And going back to what I was talking about gaming experiences and kind of breaking the bounds, we can start using some really nice looking gradients in projects like this, right?
Oh, absolutely. Gotta love the gaming experiences. They're, one of the overlapping kind of design. What is the word? One of the overlapping design trends I see with gaming experiences is, they're really dark and they're very like neon-esque, and definitely we're playing with gradients, and we're really letting the whatever artwork the game company has created with those artists, and it's a really fun thing to dive into. You were talking a little bit about borrowing, and I think there's a really good quote about it. Good artist steal, I believe, not borrow, not steal. But
Something
either
like
way,
that, yeah.
either way, totally allowed in this realm of the work we do, because a lot of these conventions are important to copy. Actually, copying is kind of an important thing to get your feet wet in this industry.
That's an interesting point, because if you take a look at, the Explore tab on Dribbble, for example, and you sort it by, let's say, all time, chances are you're going to get projects that are really out there and professional, right? Sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes you're going to get some really weird looking neumorphism stuff, and just ignore that stuff. But you're going to see a lot of stuff that really makes it in the industry. And chances are those have great contrast. They pass accessibility, not all the time, but sometimes. And those are the things you kind of want to copy. So you get those techniques down. You start really focusing on accessibility and making sure things are legible.
Absolutely. Malia has a great question around, showcasing this work in her portfolio, seemingly for job interviews, to show what you can do. Is that something you recommend for these projects that you're kind of like looking for inspiration from and copying, quote unquote?
It depends, I would say. If you're copying it one for one, I would say probably don't put that in there, because most people can copy something one for one, right? But if you're making it your own and you maybe took some inspiration from one or two little pieces on that project, absolutely, you can probably use it. But I would also showcase probably primarily the original projects that you've done, just to show your employers that you can go from start to finish and do something that is your own, right? Totally.
I think that's great. That's a great advice.
All right. So I'm going to hop over to Adobe XD, and we're just going to dive into things and see where things go. We'll start. We have a 2-hour stream, so we'll start the process somewhat bare bones. We'll do a little bit of a mock-up in wireframe. Then we'll start adding some of those magical colors and gradients and fun stuff, right? So we are going to be starting with a web project, and this will be maybe like a landing page or a dashboard of some sort. And if we have time, either today or tomorrow, I do want to design out maybe what a console experience looks like. This week, Xbox Series X and PS5 are coming out. Xbox, I think tomorrow, PS5 Thursday. I still haven't found any of them. So hopefully I'll get my hands on one.
We hope. We can only hope in these times.
I know.
I had to fight tooth and nail to get my Nintendo Switch at the beginning of quarantine.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I did some shady
one.
things to get that system.
Oh no. I don't want to know, Alexis.
I was the first. I got into Best Buy. Let's put it that way. I got in there right before we locked down.
Oh boy. Yeah. All right. So I have my artboard up, and again, this is going to be a web experience. But before I do that, I kind of want to set up some assets. I don't usually do this during my master classes because I usually, it's an hour long. Usually don't have much time, but we do have a little bit of time. So I want to dive into some colors, character styles, possibly. I'm going to just change the background color a little bit to blue, just to give a little bit of color in there. We can also work on two different versions. The gaming experience we're going to design today is going to be a darker experience, but not everyone likes that dark mode type of experience. I know this is probably going to spark questions about dark mode in XD. Don't ask me. I don't know. So let's define some colors while we are here and having some fun. Definitely. So I'm going to grab a rectangle and draw one out. And I know there's a lot of different ways to create and define colors when you're working on your projects, but I'm going to go with this way. All right. So the first color is going
for gaming experiences, Howard. It is. I would love to know what the chat thinks about what their preference is in terms of having a lighter, kind of not a non-dark mode appearance. Like, does it help your eyes when you're gaming, when you're searching? Do you have the lights up? Let us know, chat. Like, I think we have a lot of gamer overlap into this stream. So this is let us know what your systems are.
Yeah, I personally love a darker experience, especially if you're gaming at night. You don't want that blinding light in your face, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I would love to hear what the chat has to say.
Yeah.
All right, so for this first color, I want to go for the primary color of this experience. And this might be used as the highlight color throughout the app. It's not going to be a big in-your-face color because it is a bright, vibrant color, and you probably don't want to use too much of it. If you do this, for example, that's bright. It's in your face. So we're going to use it very casually throughout the application, but it's going to be a color that users will be able to look at and say, all right, that's the color of whatever this application is, right? Go for a nice, so it's not a bright red, it's not a pure red if you take a look in the color picker, but it's got a little bit of pink in it. I love this color, it's great. And then we might want a gradient to kind of go along with it. So for this one, I'm going to open up the color picker, switch over from solid color to a linear gradient, and I'll just for argument's sake, I'll just do a little bit of a diagonal gradient, just like that. And
I like it. Like that.
Yeah, and I'll keep the top color, the color that we just defined, and then I'll maybe go for like a purple. Now, let's talk about gradients for a little bit. Nice. One thing you don't, because gradients are big, right? We see them all over the place. There are some Dribbble and Behance posts that are strictly dedicated to gradients. And I see something like this a lot, right? We see these very drastic gradients where it goes from a light color to a very dark color. It's a little bit hard on the eyes. It's also a little bit difficult to design with because you might be working with a darker text or a lighter text, and parts of that text layer might kind of blend in with that gradient. So if you do want to work with two different colors, keep it kind of along the same spectrum. Something like this, right? You've got this nice pinkish red at the top, and then it kind of fades into this purplish bluish color. Something to that extent. And honestly, I can sit here for an hour and just fiddle with these gradients until I'm happy with it.
Oh, yeah. No, that is the pro tip. Gradients, the more subtle, the better with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You don't want to go completely opposite sides of the color wheel there. So that's a good pro tip.
Yeah, we've got a lot of dark mode fans in the chat.
Tons of dark mode. Philip says, Howard and dark mode, a difficult friendship.
It's so true.
What a throwback. Yeah, a lot of dark mode fans, especially for gaming. That seems to be the trend. I feel like everyone has the option, and it makes sense. It makes sense for gaming. Is it true? Is it true it saves your battery and helps your eyes? I think it does.
It depends. So on the battery front, if it's implemented well, like if it's a true dark mode and it's just pure black and your phone or device is an OLED display, I believe it does, because it's basically not emitting any light through that. But if it's like one of those grayish dark mode, it's still emitting some light, so it doesn't really help. But I think it does also help with the eyes a little bit.
That's good to know. Not all dark modes are made the same.
Indeed. Now, I don't know why I do this, but I like adding very subtle shadows behind my colors. This might be a personal preference, but
I like that. It's kind of like it's coming up from this color palette is coming up from the ground.
Yeah. And of course, as I'm designing these things, I'm going to go ahead and make sure to select these and just add them to my, I keep saying assets panel. It's no longer the assets panel. If you are just kind of catching up with some of the news at Adobe Max, it is now the libraries panel. And what's cool about the new libraries panel is it gives you access to all of your libraries in your Creative Cloud, right? So here are I'm going to be diving into some of these during the next 2 days, but you have access to all of them, which is wonderful.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's really, really fun. You know, I feel like this is really going to help a lot of XD users get into those libraries and do some cross application work here. I think back in my day, I had a lot of Illustrator libraries set, and it's really fun to just how easy it is to kind of dip into those now with this new update.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things I love about XD and the Creative Cloud in general is you can bounce back and forth between all these different apps. Like if I wanted to, if I had an image here, I can just right click on it, edit in Photoshop, do some edits, and then pop it back directly into Adobe XD, which is wonderful.
It's incredible. It's almost like it was designed that way. It's really is great. And these updates, this last updates have been like truly astounding. And I'm sure we'll get into those a little bit more. I'm almost positive we'll get into those. But it's their XD. XD is really taking some turns here into some 3D worlds that were unexpected. I don't know. Like I wasn't ready for that.
Right? Like being able to just like, look at that. It's stupid, right? And I mean, in this case, you probably wouldn't do it, but you can do these sorts of things. And you're going to see more practical use cases for 3D transforms as we go through this stream, but you can very easily just kind of rotate all these objects in almost 3D space. So you can kind of imagine if you're working on a wallet experience or even a gaming experience, there's a lot of 3D elements in gaming. You can do things like this. You can have profile cards or whatever it might be in Adobe XD, which is great.
It's unreal. Really, really great stuff.
All right. Oh, hello. Software update. No, leave me alone. All right. So I don't want to waste too much time on these gradients. I'm going to kind of move on. So I do have some colors set. Things are looking pretty good. In terms of typefaces, I spend so much time thinking about the typefaces that I want to go with this gaming experience. Because again, gaming allows you to go kind of outside the bounds. And you can go these futuristic typefaces. And one thing I love to do is just hopping onto fonts.adobe.com and just browsing some typefaces. Let's go ahead and hop into the browse fonts section. And one thing I love about this is over to the left, they have all these different tags and types of fonts. So let's say, I found a few good ones in Geometric, I think has some pretty fun ones. So this one, this Regulator Nova, I'm going to be using that a little bit. Of course, I'm going to be using Poppins just for the chat. And I think Philip mentioned last time that I didn't use Poppins or Josephine in my last project. I think it was Philip. And so I'm going to make sure to kind of weave that in today.
Man, when you're known by a font, that's when you know.
Indeed. Do you have any favorite typefaces?
Graphique is mine right now. I'm using it a lot.
That's a fun one.
It is fun. I feel like it's kind of where I'm sitting. You know, I'm pretty safe when it comes to font. It's just my vibe, which I'm grateful for. But you're right about these gaming font. Like a gaming experience really allows you to push some boundaries because gaming is always at the front of whatever a new design trend is because, geez, that community is locked and loaded in what they want and love to see. So you can have some weird fonts here, and I don't think it would offend anybody.
You never know. If I were to use Papyrus and Comic Sans the entire stream,
right,
I would hear about it for the next 7 years.
besides the two troll fonts for sure.
Although I will say that Comic Sans for people who are dyslexic is a fantastic typeface because it's not uniform. Every character is very different. So it allows, dyslexic people to go from letter to letter and not kind of switch them up.
I did read that somewhere.
Yeah.
Typefaces. We should have a stream. They should have a stream all about typefaces because that's a whole different art form into itself.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Pop-ins. All right. We're doing it. People are loving the pop-ins.
Of course. Maybe this will be like a subheader. So I might just drop this down to H2.
All right. Thank you for everyone who's just tuning into the stream. It's welcome. Happy Monday. I'm here with Howard Pinsky, and we are designing, with your help, a gaming experience, and more to develop. And if you're tuning in from YouTube, love YouTube. Who doesn't love YouTube? But come on over to Behance and come see these projects in the wild. Come make come scan the designs and be a part of this world.
Yeah. So I'm going to start blocking out this landing page. One thing that I find myself doing a lot is diving straight into high fidelity. So I tell myself everything's going to be just gray for now. And then all of a sudden it just looks like super colorful. So I'm going to try to stay kind of low fidelity for now. We'll see.
Wow.
We'll see how that works.
Oh, wow. Lo-fi Howard. It's we're see. Here. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm thinking of what we want on this landing page, and I want to kind of keep it. So Nina's asking what genre of game. I don't know if there will be a specific genre in this particular experience. It's going to be more, like a community-based landing page or service where your friends can talk to each other. You can, browse games and that sort of thing. So it's going to be kind of a broader experience.
I love that.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about what do I put on this landing page? And I do want to keep it fairly simple because this is going to be sort of like the marketing page of this. I do want to start just by dragging out some guides. I know it's not perfectly accurate, probably doesn't follow the 8-pixel grid, but you know what? We're running with it.
I was actually wondering, you're where this is a landing page, where you see this is for a maybe lives on a large television screen, right? This is a gaming system, right? So we're working with different dimensions here. Or is it a PC game, kind of a PC game type of system? What are we working with here?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a bit of both. In an ideal world, it would be a cross-platform. But later on today or tomorrow, I do want to redesign the PS5 UI. I did post it on Twitter a few weeks ago when it was announced or when it was showed off first. And a lot of people were asking, how do I design this myself in XD using stacks and things like that? So if we have some time, we'll definitely get into that. Oh,
love it. Gotta love it. Man, yeah. What are the games you're playing right now? And chat, please, what are the games that are keeping you alive during this time?
That's true. Again, I don't have much time to game anymore. Hopefully when I get one of the two new consoles, whichever I can get my hands on, I'm going to get back into that. But I play a lot of Hearthstone. It's a Blizzard game. Okay. Mainly because, I used to play World of Warcraft a lot, religiously, but I just don't have the time anymore. And Hearthstone's the type of game I can just pick up for, 1 or 2 games and just kind of drop it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I'm more of a Mario Kart online. I just started playing Among Us. That was awesome. Oh, that's been really fun.
Yeah.
Some really great games coming out.
Indeed.
Right. So let's see. And pardon me if I can't pronounce your name. Ocioni. He asks. So this is some kind of game launcher. Yeah.
I don't know. Probably not. It's more of a community experience online. I mean, maybe it'll evolve into a game launcher. I don't know where I'm going with this. I have a basic idea, but a lot of it is going to kind of be done on the fly. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Love it. Let's see. Voodoo Val's talking about Animal Crossing, Hearthstone, Diablo 2.
Oh, Diablo. I wish my Mac would play. Diablo 2 doesn't work on the Mac anymore because it's it's a 32-bit game, and Apple doesn't allow that anymore. But I'm super excited for Diablo 4, which is hopefully coming out at some point in the next year or two.
Love it.
So here, I'm working on these links, right? And again, this is very basic right now, kind of blocking things out, but this is a perfect opportunity to showcase what stacks can do, even on the most basic level. So I have this one link, and in the past, what I would probably have done, there are two things I would have done. Either, create a repeat grid and drag out a bunch of links like this, maybe separate it. But the problem you might run into is if it's a longer link, right? Long link. Things don't really move around, so the spacing gets really kind of weird, right? You can also just kind of drag things manually like this. But now with stacks, what we're able to do is I'm going to pop this link into a group, Command or Control G, and I'm going to just call this links. And over within the properties inspector, I can turn on a stack right over here, just like that. And in this case, there's only one layer, so it defined it as horizontal. But if there were other layers, maybe going down the artboard or across the artboard, XD would actually determine which direction those layers are going, which is super cool. And then from there, what I can do is I can dive into this group and just start duplicating. And it's going to automatically put that new layer beside it, or if it's vertical, it'll put a below it. And I can also set over here within the properties inspector the spacing between these. So if I want to go, let's say for, 40 pixels in between each one, it'll automatically adjust that, right? Or I can do it directly on canvas. I can hold down my tilde key or my S key and my shift key and adjust it just like that, right?
Look at that.
Yeah, but what's really cool is if you need to make changes, you remember in the repeat grid example, if I made changes to the link, the other links didn't really go anywhere. But because they're now in a stack, long link, the other links kind of adjust as you would expect, which is nice.
Wow, really saves a lot of time and effort there.
Yeah.
We thought we had it all with repeat grid.
Mm-mm.
No. Mm-mm.
And I know the team wants to improve, Adobe, about us. They want to improve not only the stacking experience, but also repeat grids as well. So if anyone has suggestions, I would love to hear it in the chat.
This is your chance, chat. This is your chance. Oh, wow. Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible, these updates.
Yeah, they're getting fun. And I've taken a few peeks at the roadmap for next year.
Ooh.
Can't say a word about it, but it's going to be a good year. That's
nice.
all I will say.
Well, that's all we need. We just need to know it's going to be a good year. We're hanging on that. We're hanging on your every word there. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, it just does tremendous things for your workflow. I think, once you really get in, and it doesn't take long to learn XD, really. And once you're in it, these updates really, really like shave those extra, I say like 30 seconds, but add 30 seconds over and over again in your workflow. Really makes a difference. So it's really great to see these happen.
Yeah, before stacks came out, you didn't really realize how often you manually moved things around. And I should probably mention, speaking of moving things around, I didn't talk about this earlier, but if I needed to rearrange these links, I just have to move it and it keeps the spacing and it just moves the link, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see a little bit later some of the more advanced workflows of using stacks to really just like move things around just like easily.
Incredible. Rob Zilla says, pro tip, Stacks was named after Howard's financial status. Dang.
Really?
Wow. This is when we go like this.
Wish I had big stacks. This is coming from Rob, who's done work for Apple, and he got LeBron James recently tweeted one of his, I don't know if you got paid for that, but LeBron James recently tweeted one of his illustrations. So Rob's up there, I think. And if you haven't checked out Rob's work, go to Rob's Behance and all of his other pages. He's an amazing illustrator who's done work for, I don't even know all the clients he's done work for, but big companies.
There you go. And if you're on Behance, just click his name. If you're on YouTube, you can't do that. So you have to come over to Behance. We got some good copy, some game on.
Yeah, and this is kind of where I want to talk more about these typefaces or highlight this is, if you take a look at this, right? if I have a capital G, it looks like any other typeface, right? But some of these have really unique styles, whether it's the capital letters or the lowercase letters. And if I change this to a lowercase g, it's just going to kind of give this whole experience a fun vibe, right?
I love it. It reminds me of the, gosh, what was the Pokemon? Someone in the chat.
The Unknown. It looks like
Unknown. That's it. Yep. Which is very, very fitting for this type of experience.
Yeah. I don't have any specific copy in mind for this experience just yet, so I'm just kind of doing placeholder text just to kind of fit things in here. But if anyone in the chat does have some ideas, let me know.
Oh, chat. If I know one thing the chat is good at, besides being awesome, is some creative copy.
That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. People are, the G does seem like the Unknown. It's a really cool font. It's a really cool, like, enigma looking font.
I'm going to go back to Poppins for our buttons. See what that looks like. And while we're designing buttons, I do want to showcase a few things that I think people who are brand new to XD might really like. You know what? This background is bothering me against this. I'm going to change this to a darker color. That's a bit better. If you're new to XD and you haven't explored stacks, which I showed you, and also padding and components, let's talk a little bit about some of that stuff while we're creating this button. Because I'm sure many of you know the traditional way of creating buttons and things like that. But now what I'm able to do is I've got this button looking okay, right? It's not the greatest looking button in the world, but I want to start with this. So I'm going to make sure that, I have both of these objects selected over here. And of course, you could create a group if you wanted to, but knowing that I'm going to be using this button throughout many different pages on this project, I want to actually hop into my libraries and create a component right down here at the bottom. You can also do that in your properties inspector, Command or Control K, a lot of different ways to create components. But I've got my button now. And this will allow me to do one of a few things. The first thing I like doing with buttons, not all buttons, but certain buttons, in this case, it probably will work, is turning on padding, which is right below the stack option. So I'm going to turn that on, and XD is going to look at the relationship between the topmost layers and the background layer, which is the layer at the very bottom. It's going to automatically define padding. And of course, you can change that. So if you wanted, let's say, 40 pixels on each side, you can very easily just do that. And what that'll allow me to do is if I make changes to this text layer, let's say I sign up or learn more, right? Learn more. You're noticing as I'm typing, that button gets bigger and smaller, which is wonderful. It's going to save a ton of time.
Incredible.
Yeah, so I've got this button. Now, I haven't decided just yet. I would love to hear suggestions in the chat. And looks like some people are putting suggestions. Nina put, take your game to the next level or some variation. That's a good idea. But I'd love to also hear suggestions in the chat. What kind of buttons do you like? Right now, this is a very straight edged button. I think we might get a little bit fancy with it using a plugin in just a few minutes. But, we've got also these like slightly rounded corners. Maybe I'll do 16. So that's an option. Maybe it's a bit too much, but it doesn't matter. And then, of course, you have the completely pill-shaped, capsule-shaped, whatever you want to call it, buttons. So I haven't decided just yet which direction I want to go. So I'm going to keep it nice and straight-edged. And the nice thing about this, now that I'm using components, if I did decide to round out those corners later, I can do it.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Wemo likes, I like full rounded buttons. Shelly, I like rounded. Kita, I like rounded. Seems like everyone likes a rounded button.
Interesting. I'm gonna go rounded.
I mean, that's the thing, right? It's one of those things where people have become so accustomed to the rounded button, and they're a little more friendly, a little more easy on the eyes. But maybe for this this game convention that we're kind of settling in with, like the font itself, it's a lot more straight edged, especially with that G.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. So one more thing I want to talk about as I'm creating this button is because I have it as a component, I can also create additional states. Now, hover state we're going to get to in a minute because I want to get a little bit fancy with that. I haven't actually tried what's in my head right now, so it may not work at all, but we're going to get a bit fancy. But I do want to create another state and maybe an outline button, because I'm thinking, up here at the top in this big call to action, what I might want to do is have two different buttons. One might be sign up and one might be explore games or something like that. And one thing you almost always want to avoid, in my opinion, is having two buttons that look identical. Both in this case are filled in, so they kind of have equal weight. And if you're running a service that you want someone to sign up with, you're probably going to want the sign up button to be a little bit more bold and in your face than whatever the other thing is. Explore games might take you to a page where the sign up button is not as in your face. So it might kind of distract users and push them away.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Oh, let's see. Oh man. Buttons. There's so many variations of how to, so many creative ways of designing a button. Indeed. And sometimes just, and I love this. I love creating more than one state for a button, especially with this isn't a new update. This one's been around for a while, but I still haven't seen anything in other design tools as simple as this to use.
Yeah, many of the other design tools have, they have components. Some of them have states. They may not call them the exact same thing, but I found that component states in XD is just so simple to use. I can just duplicate this button over and switch over to the outline state. And if I needed to make changes to it, I don't have to go into like this other magical isolation mode that takes me away from my project. I can just edit the main component, which is this one right here, directly on my canvas and just make those changes. So going back to what I was talking about earlier, if the buttons were to be rounded, I can do that. And not only did it change all of the filled in buttons, but it also changed the outline or the rounded corners of the outline buttons, all the states as well, which is wonderful. Now, of course, I could switch over to the outlined state and round out just those corners and not have it affect the default state. So you do have a lot of flexibility when working with component states.
Great stuff. Great.
All right.
Stuff.
So that's looking okay. Of course, it's going to really change once we get some imagery in here to really brighten this thing up, add some neon effects. Oh, so I saw something come by that reminded me of this hover effect that I want to do. Again, I don't know if it's going to work very well, but we're going to try. This is why I love these streams, just experiment. And if you make a fool of yourself in front of a few hundred people, so be it. So I'm going to create a new hover state. And what I want to do for this one is try out a new plugin that was just released not too long ago. I think it was like a few days ago. So I'm going to hop into my plugins down here at the bottom, and it's called Glitch. And as you can imagine, and looking at the icon, it allows you to add like a kind of a glitch effect to your design. Awesome. Yeah. So watch what happens if I just select the background, and I'm going to reduce the horizontal shift so it doesn't like spread out too far, but I can just press generate, and I've got this fun looking effect going on, right?
Look at that.
Yeah. Now what I want to do is actually use my highlight color. So I'm going to just copy this, hop back over to plugins, paste it in here. Maybe I'll stick with this blue. I may tweak it a little bit. The one thing I don't like, or one thing, I don't know if it's the API or they haven't gotten around to it yet, but I would love the ability to either sample a color from this panel or, click on this and bring up a color picker. That would be fun.
Glitch. Got some work to do. But dang, that is a cool plugin.
So we've got that. I'm going to make sure to move the button above it. Now, what I'm going to mention, let me actually just shift these a little bit. There we go. Yeah, what I want to mention is when I made this change, right? It, of course, changed a lot of the layers. It added some masks. It probably changed the layer names of these objects. So if you're hoping to use Auto-Animate with this, what I would suggest is create the glitch effect first on the main state, and then alter it on the hover state. But I'm just looking for a basic cut when the hover takes place. So I'm not too concerned about the layer names in Auto-Animate.
That is so interesting. So it just
Yeah.
glitches out whatever you've selected. Is it just do shapes, or can it do
text
other
too?
things?
So I can just grab this text layer and let's actually increase the horizontal shift. Maybe I'll add another line and whoop. Now that's a little bit extreme, right? But you can do things like that.
That is pretty cool. That is
fun.
That is awesome. Yeah, everyone agrees. Very cool plugin.
It's interesting, right?
Chad, if you have any other cool plugins, please share, because you said this came out fairly recently. Wow, incredible.
Yeah, I think a few days ago.
Can't keep up with all the plugins.
No, not at all. So I have a hover effect that I added, and hover effects are wired up by default. So all I have to do now is press play, and now I will mention, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, but the layer names not kind of matching up. You're noticing that as I hover, there's this weird glitch going on, which is ironic because, we're creating a glitch. But it's not exactly what I want. So I want to make sure to go into prototype mode. It's already selected. I'm just going to change the type to transition and no animation. And now I've got, got this fun little glitch effect going on.
There you go. It's a glitch it's a designed glitch.
Exactly.
It's the right kind of glitch. That looks great. That looks great.
Yeah, fun. All right, this bar keeps popping up here. I'm gonna move it over. Okay, so we've got that looking okay, and I'd imagine that this is maybe a profile picture, and maybe notifications might go in this area. I do want to create one more thing before we get to some of the color in the background information. Maybe down here we might want to showcase some maybe newly released games, or who knows what it might be, right? We can always mold this as we go. So I'm going to grab a rectangle. There we go. And just draw one out down here.
Just drawing out some games.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just take a moment to say hello to anyone who's just joined us. Welcome. Welcome to Adobe Live. We are in the XD stream with Howard Pinsky, and we're going through creating an interactive gaming experience with him. And that's taking a very interesting form right before our eyes. If you are new, welcome. If you've come through plenty of times, still welcome.
Indeed.
Indeed. So this is something that would maybe hold game cartridges.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
God, I miss a game cartridge.
I know.
Just not quite the same.
It's not. All right, so I've got these games or these boxes kind of floating down this artboard, and I want to make sure that we're going to be able to scroll to see these. Right, I have them peeking up, and I might even want to put like a subheader here. Maybe make it a little bit larger. 32, possibly, right? And maybe for argument's sake, this might be, the hottest games on the market or something. We'll figure it out. Maybe chat might have some suggestions on what to put in this particular area. So I have them kind of peeking up from the bottom of this landing page just to let people know who are landing here that there's something down there, right? If I just had this down here, ignore the background moving, people may not know that, there's something down there. So we kind of want to hint something down there, but I do want to make sure that they can scroll. So if I select the artboard, I can just drag this down, make the background a bit bigger. Actually, do I need this background? I can probably just change. Oh yeah, I do need it because I'm going to put an image in there. But I can change the background of the artboard to the same color. And what you're noticing now is there's this blue handle over to the left, and that's the viewport height. So anything above this is going to be visible when the prototype is played, and anything below it can be accessed on scroll, as you can see here.
There you go. Okay.
All right.
Got a little peeking games.
Yeah. Now, I'm wondering what the best way to approach additional information for these particular areas. We might have the name of the game, maybe a button to do something, maybe download or launch the game, or I don't know what it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are a few options. One, I could, pop something down here, game title, and maybe there'll be some secondary information. Maybe over to the right, possibly, there might be a button of some sort. Again, it could be play, it could be download. I don't know what it might be, right? So that's option number one. What was that?
Maybe it's a rating of some kind.
Right. Who knows? But that's option number one.
Mm-hmm.
Option number two, which I think is kind of interesting, is to utilize more hover. So hopefully the image that goes in these boxes is familiar enough and striking enough that someone would want to hover over top of it and see more. Or maybe they're used to this experience and that's just what they do, right? So what I can do here is I'm going to turn just this piece into a hover state. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, and it'll probably make a little bit more sense once there's actual image. You know what? Let's put some images in here. It'll just make everything so much easier.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I got Spider-Man, Cyberpunk, good old Keanu, and Horizon Zero Dawn. There we go. And maybe I'll put a little bit of a border. Just a tiny border.
Just a happy little tree.
A happy little border. All right. So here we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a separate element that's going to be this hover effect. Now, some people, what they might do is they might select this entire thing and create a component from it and then create a hover state. The tricky part about this is it's kind of a limitation in XD right now, which is being worked on. But if you were to have an additional, let me make some changes to this hover state for a second. I'll just change this to this to pretend that's a hover effect. If I were to, duplicate this and make some changes to, and then replace this with, let's say, another image. Let me find another image. And then make changes to the hover state. It's not going to really remain in sync. Behind the scenes is called horizontal syncing that the team is working on. So what I prefer to do, and this also just helps keep my sanity in check, so you have a separate component just for the hover effect, is I'm going to duplicate the shape, Command and Control D, and I'm going to change the fill to 0 because I want to be able to see the image by default. And then from this, I'm going to actually call this hover. I'm going to press the plus button. I am going to create a hover state just like that. And now I can pop all the contents in here. So I can bump this up to, let's say 60%, somewhere around there. And inside of here, I can start adding some of that information.
Oh, look at that.
Okay. And let's go ahead and just add 2 placeholders for buttons. Again, I don't know exactly what these would be, probably download and play or something to that effect. But I'll add 1 button here. Maybe I'll drop the opacity a touch.
That is very cool. Love the workarounds, That's really the name of the game here. Just trying to solve problems creatively.
Indeed.
Natalia really likes your choice of games. Nice choice of games.
Oh yeah.
We have a comment. Wanted to see. I bet. We have a comment. I wanted to see Assassin's Creed there.
That comes out tomorrow, I think. Do I have this in? I do, right here.
Ask and you shall receive, chat. There you go. Very cool. We also have Natalia is joining us from YouTube. Thought the glitch effect was such a good idea. She had to come into Behance to comment on it.
Yes.
I love that. I love that so much. I love that for all of us. And it's so true. This is where we'll see the comments. I know there are comments in YouTube, but we only see the ones here. And that's doing great.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I now have the hover effect created, right? It's on its separate layer. And if I press play, scroll down, I can just hover over and see whatever it is that I see. Now, one thing we might talk about is now, as of the Adobe Max update, component states support nested hover. So if I were to go ahead and once I add in some icons, we might create another hover effect inside of this hover effect, and you'll be able to hover and hover and hover and hover and to your heart's content. But we'll get to that in a little bit.
You're flying off the ground. That's pretty cool. And that's awesome for a use case like this, right? You have so much to select, and you want to be able to do multiple actions on something you have selected. And that's usually that's a very common use case. So it's awesome that we can see that ability.
Yeah, absolutely. And another benefit of using this separate hover component is that I could just now duplicate it over here. Let me bring it up, and I can just use it over here too. So now very quickly, I have these two hover effects that we're kind of running with.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think, for my personal preference, I think that's probably a better option than having this information down here. But, every project's going to be different.
Definitely. But, this is one of those things where you as a gamer, you're creating something that you're very familiar with. And, the hover is so integral to how you select games, whether it's on your PC or on your console. Very, very necessary for this.
Yeah. And one thing, if we want to get a little bit fancy with this is, on the main component, on that hover state, I can turn on a background blur. And let me bump the opacity up. And now we've got this interesting looking effect going on. I don't know if I'm loving it. Maybe I'll just drop the amount of blur a little bit. Maybe I'll drop what I could do is I can bring in some transparency from the color of the layer, which is black in this case. And now we've got little background blurs. What do you think?
Look at that. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. You can really see the text better this way. So
I think so.
Digging that.
Yeah. I'd love to hear what the chat has to say as well.
The chat is pretty stoked on Keanu Reeves. I'll tell you that much.
I mean, how can you not be?
How could you not be? So true, so true. No worries, no worries. Awesome. Awesome stuff. Really, in just such a short amount of time, we have a full, almost not necessarily enormously full, but we have an experience here. This is pretty pretty great.
There, right?
With glitches and all. Planned glitches.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that little outline, the little pink outline there.
Yeah, it's a nice little touch. And hopefully, actually, what I can do is possibly add a little bit of a shadow. And by the way, I should probably point out that even though I have 3 of these hover effects already in use, I'm editing the main component. So by editing this main component and its various states, it's going to push all the changes to the various cards, which I can override, which I'll show you in just a moment. But let me go ahead and, no, I don't want the shadow on this one. I actually want the shadow on the hover state. And I'm going to add a bit of a shadow. Maybe we'll go for a pinkish red color. And I'm going to really blur this. So you almost have it's almost like a, what's it called? An outer glow. Now we're running into a little bit of a problem because we're also using a background blur. We're kind of bleeding it in. So maybe this wasn't the greatest idea. It's interesting, right? But honestly, it's probably not.
I see where you're going. Kind of have that that hue light backlit effect.
Yeah. I'll probably keep it off for now.
Well, Ariana says, looks good, Howard. Henrique says, looks awesome. So
thank you.
You're in good company here.
All right. So while we're here, let's actually talk about the nested components, which have changed quite a bit recently. So I need some icons. So what I'm going to do is I can go to my plugins panel, and I do have the icons for design plugin installed. If you don't have plugins currently, hit the plus button at the top. Bunch of plugins. I think there's several hundred plugins in XD right now. You can connect to Microsoft Teams, Slack, Jira, Dropbox, a lot of different things. There's a list plugin. I know many of you want to create bulleted lists in XD. There's now a plugin which is actually created by an internal team at Adobe, which I know confuses some people. Because you're probably asking, well, if you can create a plugin to create bulleted lists, why can't you just bring that functionality directly to XD? And trust me, I know Alexa's sitting there thinking, yeah, please do that. And I want that too. I want bulleted lists in XD, but it's not being ignored, trust me. But that's part of a much larger project. The team obviously wants to create a bunch or add a bunch more text options to XD, but it's part of a much bigger project to convert the whole text engine in XD to support all of these other additions. So it's being worked on, I think, but it's definitely on the radar. So, stay tuned.
Yeah. And like any great, I mean, this is Adobe we're talking about. These are, the ethos of it is creatives and people creating different solutions. And like obviously it's getting worked on, but man, if you don't have that already in you as an Adobe user, like what you doing? Everyone's my first experience with Adobe products is like you gotta make it work for you. And that's the beauty of being like creative and learning that. It's actually a great way to learn it, is putting restraints on yourself. So yeah, I'm excited for what's to come, but there's a lot of great stuff to work with and within. And plugins is an awesome workaround for things that don't necessarily exist quite yet.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So I've gone ahead and added this icon, which might be a download icon of some sort. And I was about to add a heart icon with, using this plugin. But then I remembered we can create hearts in XD.
There you go.
And I love showing this off because people who don't know this exists get so excited after this. So with my polygon tool, which is just right here in the tools bar, I'm going to draw out a polygon like this. I'm going to zoom in so you can really see. And then over to the right, we've got our various options for these polygons, including the number of sides. But in here, if you put the little, I don't know what this is called. It's a heart ASCII or little kind of basic emoji. I don't know what it's called. But if you do that, you've got a heart.
Look at that. Chat. Fancy. Did you see that? Oh my goodness.
It's so simple.
I love that. Fancy. I love that. You know what? More hearts all over the place.
I agree.
Very cool.
All right. I think those icons are looking pretty good. They're not great. I might change them, but beauty of components, you can do that. So I'm going to turn both of these into components. So I'm going to select both of these objects, the icon and the background. I'm going to make a component. Now, what you're going to notice if you're paying attention is if you take a look at the top left-hand corner, that is an instance of this component, which might be a little bit confusing at first if you didn't read about the update, because usually when you create a component, it's a main component, so that diamond is filled in. However, the way the change happened is, or what happens in this change that we released, is that any component created inside of a larger component is automatically going to be turned into an instance, right? So keep that in mind. Now, the cool thing about this is you don't necessarily need to edit the main component in order to make changes to all of your other components. It's a little bit confusing, right? Because that's how main components work. You make changes to the main, it changes to everything. Now you can do that. However, XD is now smart enough that it recognizes that this particular instance is sitting inside the main component of this game card, right? So it kind of treats this instance as a main component of itself, which is kind of cool. So if I were to duplicate this downwards, actually, I don't have to do that. I already have them over here. And this is now an instance, right? So if I were to dive in here and make changes to this background layer, it's going to push it, even if it's not a main component. So XD is kind of, it's just blowing my mind when I first saw that for the first time, It's kind of smart, right? And it's how you would expect it to work, because if you have this button in a main component, you would expect instances of this larger component to also change when you edit this one. It didn't work that way before if this was a main component, but yeah, it now does.
It's essentially, it's thinking ahead for us at this point.
Yeah.
XD's like, I know what you're about to do.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be a little Russian nesting doll of tricks.
Yeah.
That's
Shout
pretty
out to the
cool.
engineers and designers and product managers who made this happen. I know I was in contact, I'm usually in contact with a lot of the product teams as they're developing certain features. And I had several meetings with the team who worked on this to kind of get feedback and test it out and things like that. And they're just so smart, all of them.
Mm-hmm. Really are.
Okay. Yeah. So going back to what I was talking about earlier about the nested components, right? We have this instance of a component inside of this larger component. And I might want to add a hover effect to this one. Now, this is one of the areas where you need to edit the main component of this instance in order to make a change if you want to add additional states. So I'm just going to hit this button. It's going to pop out my main component here. And I want to add an additional state. This is going to be a hover state. And I'm going to keep this one very simple. I'm going to just dive in here, grab these elements, maybe move it 3 down and 1, 2, 3. Very simple stuff. And now I can go back here and that hover state is now on this instance. Wow. So what I can do now is let me turn the main instance to its default state. And now I can press play. So now not only can I hover over top of this larger component, which has a hover state enabled, but I can also dive in here, right?
That's pretty great.
It's
and
super
you didn't
cool.
have to dive into layers upon layers to do it. Nope. That is incredible. Laura has a question about all this. How do you distinguish the instance of a main component that is nested in a component? They both seem to be marked with a white diamond. Okay. It's a good question.
So let me read this again. How do you distinguish the instance of a main component nested in a component? So I think they're treated like the same. I think a lot of it goes by what the nested components are nested within. So in this case, this one here, this is the main component, the larger one, and this is the instance. So in a sense, this is the main component of this main component, even though it's an instance. When I was writing my video on this update, it's so difficult to talk about main components and instances turning into it's been rough, but it's a good change. Hopefully once you start using it, you'll kind of understand how it works, but it's very difficult to explain.
Absolutely. Yes. It seems like it's one of those things where it's something you want to do when you get into prototyping heavily. It's something you want to do or wanted to do in XD prior to this, but you didn't know you did. It's really an interesting concept, and it's very common. It's not a crazy interaction that's out of nowhere. So it's, I guess in general, yeah, talking about it, the layering of it is confusing, but when you see it in action, it makes complete sense.
I agree.
Yeah.
So what I have now is I have these hover states, which you can't see right now, but they're there, and I also have these cards, right? And I want to make sure, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier with the links, I want to make sure that I can rearrange some of these things if changes need to be made. So you would imagine you would have to select this hover effect and the card in the background, put those into a group, and then do that for all of these, and then put everything into a group and turn on stack on. And you have to do most of that. But XD is kind of brilliant when it comes to figuring out what layers belong to each other. So even though I have 2 layers here and 2 layers here, I'm actually going to select all of this stuff and put all of this into a group. I'll just call this hot games, right? And I'm simply going to turn on a stack within the properties inspector. And you're noticing in the layers panel, XD did all that subgrouping for me, which is super cool. If I open this up, it's got both of those layers. So it realized that they're kind of the same thing. They're part of each other. It could be because they were overlapping, but in some cases I've done it where things were not overlapping at all. But yeah, it's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Okay, that's a little there's a magician and open the blinds. Is Oz behind there? Like, truly, did they just assign designers to they're just watching you design on XD and just are like, let's do this for them? That's essentially what you're getting with XD, is a pro designer helping guide you. Very cool. Oh
yeah. And now with the stack enabled, I can just kind of shift these around, which is great. All right.
Wow.
That's getting there. But, I do kind of want to start putting some information up top. I was going to add some more down here, but this black background is just, it needs a little bit of life. So I did grab some images from Adobe stock. Excuse me. And let's see. That's some inspiration. And here we go. Yeah, so I have some images here, and I might want to, let's grab this one here, pop that in. It's a fun, kind of follows the theme of glitching, right? Fancy.
Love it.
Yeah, but he's kind of reaching, and there's this just open area here. There's also a lot of overlapping going on with this text layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip this. So I'm just going to hop over to the properties inspector, flip horizontally. That way he's got a little bit more room over there. It's not really overlapping, but it's still kind of void over here. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, and I've got one more image I'm going to pop in here, just like that. I might want to flip this one around. But of course, now we're at the problem where we can't really see the other layer, right? We've got this layer on top of this layer. But what I can do is, because there's a lot of black in this area where this guy in the background, we kind of want to come into play, I can change my blend modes to screen or lighten, and it'll kind of bring him back. And there he is. So now I have both layers overlapping each other.
Whoa. Did that blow everyone else's mind? Because it definitely
that was kind of cool.
That was pretty great.
Yeah.
You guys, maybe rewind that, do that in slow motion. That just, I mean, talk about a real life glitch. Glitches can be beautiful, you guys. That's awesome. That looks awesome.
Yeah, I'm also going to make sure to group some of these elements up here. And very similar to what we were talking about earlier about XD kind of knowing things, right? This will be the header. I want to turn a stack on, but XD looks at horizontal or vertical for the layers. So we've got one layer here, one layer here. So things are automatically horizontal, but it's going to notice that the buttons, these ones are horizontal, right? So it needs to define a vertical group to go along with the first two. So when I turn stack on, you're noticing over here these are terribly named, but over here in the layers panel, it's going to automatically group these buttons so that it can continue in the process of creating a horizontal stack. A vertical stack. But I can dive in here and add another stack to these buttons. So I can also have, a stack and a stack, and I can move things around as necessary.
So like coming to the front of our stream, stacks on stacks.
Yeah, all the stacks.
Howard's got stacks on stacks, you guys. Very cool. I love that. It's really saying something how smart this XD has become, and how incredible and how simple it's going to be to use now that these features are here. Wow. Incredible.
Yeah. Incredible. And I know that, some of the team members have ideas for even smarter features in Adobe XD. I can't talk about those obviously because they're not a thing right now, and they may not be a thing for a while, because I think we want to explore how artificial intelligence, and in Adobe's case, it's Adobe Sensei. How can Sensei be used to further improve the design experience? And it's much less about how can Sensei or AI design for me. It's more about how can AI help me design faster. A lot of things like the grouping of the stacks that I just showed you a minute ago, that doesn't help you become a better designer. It's not going to replace the job of a designer. It's just going to make your life easier by allowing you to move things around, grouping things together. So things like that, I think the team is going to explore a lot.
Wow, that's really exciting stuff. Speaking of exciting stuff, I just want to give a little announcement. If anyone who is just joining us, please welcome. We've missed you. I'm glad you're here now. We're here with Howard Pinsky, and we've just gone through and created a really badass gaming entertainment kind of mock-up screen. And I think we're almost to the point now where we can say, like, you're hi-fi. You're at hi-fi now, Howard.
I think so.
You
I
went
was
hi-fi
hoping
Howard on
I
us.
was hoping to stick with lo-fi for a little bit longer, but I just, when I find images, I just have to put them in there.
And that's your flow, and that's how you work. And that's okay. If anybody is also wondering, today, pretty soon, we have almost less than 30 minutes, we'll be talking about a specific artist in the community, and it's called the Artist Spotlight. And it's usually someone straight from the chat, or someone who's really a part of the Discord and the XD community, and we think deserves some focused energy and time. So in about maybe like 30 minutes, we'll get into theirs and to their portfolio on Behance, and that's going to be exciting. So but that's later. Right now, we're looking at this amazing game console, game entertainment space, community, whatever you want to call it,
thing.
Sure. Either way, it's cool, and it glitches out in the coolest ways.
Indeed. While you were talking, I was experimenting with 3D transforms just to kind of see what it would feel like on a page like this. But before I go into that, I want to tackle two things. The first thing is up here, there's some text, but there's also a lot of like neon elements at the top, which are making it a little bit difficult to read some of these text layers. So one usually almost always sure-proof solution is to add a bit of a gradient behind it, right? So I can just create a rectangle like that. I'm actually going to just drag this rectangle right below all this stuff, which I should probably group some of these as well. Let me actually just group some of these. Group, and this will be navigation. All right, and gradient. So for this one, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select linear gradient, and I'm going to set both of the colors at black. But the color at the bottom, because we want to start being able to see much of this information down here, we're just going to drop the opacity to 0. And I would even argue that you can probably drop the opacity a little bit of the top layer until some of those text layers start to come in and become a little bit more readable, right? Something like that. And I can also use this down here. I'm going to flip this over, pop this towards the bottom. And in this case, I do want that darker one to be a pure black in this case, or whatever the background color is that I'm using. That way, if I go ahead and preview this, that background image kind of just fades out, right? There's a little bit of a weirdness going on there, but I can just boop. That's a bit better, right? So it just kind of fades away. So there's not that sharp edge at the bottom, which kind of looks weird.
Oh, look at that.
Look at that. Fancy. We're missing a logo up here, but before, what do we tackle first? Maybe the logo. We'll get to 3D transform soon. So in Finder, of course I can make a logo myself, but I'm lazy, right? So in Finder, I do have this really cool looking panda that's gaming. I want the chat to give me name suggestions for whatever this experience is based on this logo. What would you say, Alexis?
Ooh, panda gaming, something. I'm all about the awful dad puns. So something like pandemonium, something like, someone said glitch out, glitch in with friends, something with the word glitch. Let's see.
So what you may have noticed is I opened this Illustrator file that I grabbed from Adobe XD directly in XD. Sorry, I grabbed from Adobe Stock. I opened it in XD. And you can open Illustrator files, sketch documents, and Photoshop files in XD, which is super cool. All the paths come over, all the fun stuff, right? So I can just copy this, hop over here, and boop, paste it into place.
Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Yeah, that's the beauty of the cross platform, being able to open up files. And I love collaborating with illustrators and just being able to just open up their file and bring it on in. Kerwin says Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That could be the mascot's name.
Yeah. Natalia says Panda Glitches.
Panda Punks, I see.
Looks like Pondas, like Pondas.
PWN,
Pondas.
Mm-hmm.
That's cute. I like
Interesting.
that. Panda Punks. You guys are so creative.
I know, aren't they?
Telling you the creative copy in the chat. These are they're under your what's it called when you're something isn't getting the rightful credit that it's due.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm thinking to kind of continue along this glitch idea. Maybe because this is an Illustrator file and I have access to all the paths, maybe just kind of glitch this shape out a little bit. So let's go back to plugins and go to the glitch shape. Let's go for a little bit of a horizontal shift and generate. Ooh.
Yeah, look at that.
Then I can grab this and maybe I'll pull in. So maybe I'll pull in the red for this one. And on this shape, I'll pull in that blue. That's looking kind of fun.
That's pretty cool.
I'm digging it. Now, one other cool thing that I want to showcase is, we've been using this glitch on a few elements. We have it on the logo. We also now have it on this hover state, right? And it uses this very particular blue, which I'm not completely fond of. I might want to make a few tweaks to this blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select any object on my document that uses this blue. I'm going to add it to my document assets inside of the libraries panel. It's not the assets panel anymore. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this color now that it's been applied to my assets. And maybe I'll sample this color, this blue that's in this panda's hat. It's similar, but it's kind of along those lines, right? And now what you're going to notice is that the blue has been applied to this button as well, which uses that glitch effect, which is great.
Love it.
Yeah.
You know what? Just like that. I mean, even just changing out a color that you've decided later, that color, just changing a color in general, period, is such a hassle and can be such a hassle. And you never know where those colors have fallen in your designs.
Right.
That's got to be one of my favorite things to do is in XD is just change it up.
Yeah, because looking at my landing page right now, right? Even if I preview it, I don't know that I'm using that particular blue inside of this hover effect. You would have to go through every single element and every component and every state to find every instance of that color. But now I can just change it to, let's say, I don't know, what am I doing? Edit. I can go for more of a purplish color, right? And now it changed it inside. I kind of like that, actually.
I like that a lot.
It changed it inside of the state, which is great.
Yeah. And if
Rob says glitch was the original name for the popular candy bar known as Twix. There you go.
Is that true? I love that. If that's real.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, this is one of those things where they don't tell you about this when you start into working in the industry, how often you're going to have to change things as simple as color, just a color, not just the concept. You think it's going to be something big, like the concept itself. No. It's change that font and change that color and make it pop.
Yeah. So imagine you are the document owner of a design system at a company like Adobe or Apple or Microsoft or any other big company, right? That, those colors that they use or those character styles are used across probably thousands of documents that are actively in use. Imagine if you had to send an email to the entire company and said, you know what, we're using this kind of bluish color right now, but we want to change it like 1% up. You have to go through your entire document, thousands, and make those changes. But because the assets panel, the libraries panel exists, and that can be linked from multiple documents. So you can have your 1,000 documents pulling in this library of colors. That document owner just has to make that change once, and it just distributes across everything.
It's incredible.
Yeah, you don't really grasp the importance of using assets until you think of it that way. Imagine being that person who had to make that change thousands of times before.
Until it becomes larger, which, it's hard to imagine when you're starting a project. Until that project becomes large, you don't realize how often these little things are going to save you time. A lot of time. That something like that would take, I can't even imagine for something like Adobe. I really couldn't, like the design system, like or anything big, but even just like a small startup or like a project you're doing with friends between two different files, the amount of screens that happen and the amount of times you need to change something, that's hours, that's days, that's valuable time and resources. So that's awesome. Thanks for showing us that. And
Yeah.
I think Voodoo Val really helped me out with the word that I had lost, underrated. The chat is underrated, much like this tip here around colors and the libraries.
I agree. Yeah, totally
Underrated.
agree. So I did want to talk a little bit about 3D transforms. And I think this is super cool, right? So I've got these very flat looking images. And for the most part, let me just preface this by saying, for the most part, this is how things are going to be delivered, because it's flashy, but it's not overly flashy. But just because I like getting fancy in some of these streams, we're going to take this to the next level, but rarely will you see this in this particular case on a website. But it's possible, right? Maybe 2021 will be the year of 3D transforms, especially considering CSS has 3D transforms as well. So you never know. So I've got these flat looking cards and I want to give them a little bit of depth. So there are two ways I can 3D transform these objects. If I wanted the entire thing to be kind of at an angle, I can select the entire group that it's within and then open up or turn on 3D transforms within Properties Inspector or Command or Control T. And I can just rotate the entire thing like that. Now, it probably wouldn't make sense for this particular area because all of them should be relatively the same size. But if you're working on like a header like this, right, you kind of want it to go off the page.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look how interesting that looks, right? And the hover still works on it. It kind of gives it this fun look to it. Or, I can do something like this and just kind of work off of this background image, right? And now this person is all of a sudden controlling these cards inside of his, looks like an Oculus, but inside of his headset.
It really, really changes the game, the 3D transform. I obviously, it is, if you look on Dribbble, 3D, 4D looking illustrations are a big trend. Yeah. And, and that's great. And animating them is awesome and looks great. But, sometimes you just want to be on that level with your design. Say you're mocking something up and you're like, maybe you're not the illustrator, but you want to showcase what something could look like in this space. Say you're making a landing page or something. Before you had to go into maybe, Illustrator, do some grab some points, or even just do it in XD, grab some points, move them around, kind of to showcase that isometric look. I love this for mocking up something that maybe you're not an expert in quite yet. Right? So maybe you're not an expert in illustrations and 3D at all, and 4D, but you want to showcase that somehow. And this tool, this 3D transform, blew my mind when I saw it, because I can't tell you how many times I've been like, oh, I wish I could showcase, this would be a great thing to do there to give to the illustrators, to kind of give, and I don't want to have to talk through this. I want to just show them. As a non-illustrator, this is a game changer for me. And obviously for mocking up spaces, unreal.
Yeah, when I started playing with 3D transforms internally and started using it for augmented reality experiences, that's kind of when it clicked. Because at first I was like, I saw a preview. This was like a year and a half ago in San Francisco, and Anirudh sat down beside me. He's like, I got to show you this. And first he did the standard, I can rotate a card, right? And I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. And then he started showing me an example of how it'll work with augmented reality. And it's like, this, I think I literally told him, you need to do whatever you have to do. You need to make sure that this comes to Adobe XD. And thankfully it did.
Yeah. Popping off the plane, it's incredible. And just seeing, it's still fairly new, and but just seeing what people could do with it has been really awesome. And I know I'm excited just in the simplest ways, just to be able to showcase something different.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is great. That's so fun. Yeah.
All right,
Did you tune into Talon's stream where he?
I did. That was a lot of fun.
Those cards were so cool to see flip around.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I've been experimenting with similar, similar experiences, like card experiences as well. Maybe we'll talk about that tomorrow. But Talon and I were just kind of riffing back and forth internally before it was released, just like passing on ideas and examples. And it was just a lot of fun.
Oh man, so much to be done. So much to be done yet. We're just at the front of it. So that's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. And you probably noticed that as I was transforming these objects, the cards behind them or beside them were moving too, right? Mm. Which I think is super cool, because if you're working with stacks, it respects the 3D transformations. So I can select all 3 of these and rotate them. And stacks, that's why it's glitching a little bit. Stacks is trying to keep things in line. But now we have this kind of like fanned out gallery looking thing. I don't know how much I like it, but what I might want to try is maybe rotate this one 30, maybe this one -30. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know, maybe.
As a game, it's cool. It's definitely cool to showcase. I think as a game, we want to see those in motion. I think that makes more sense. But
yeah, and I will mention that 3D Transforms does not currently work with component states, so you can't at the moment set up like hover effects that transform while you're hovering. That's something that the team is actively exploring, so hopefully we get that at some point.
Very cool.
Yeah, and you can also see that the hover states are also 3D transformed. Fancy. All right.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Jesse's 2 weeks of creative challenges, because I just assume I haven't looked at them quite yet, and I know they get released every day. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of really fun 3D transform activities and creative challenges to be done. And like I said, they're bite-sized. Just get them done and learn it.
Absolutely. All right, so here we are. There's still some things I want to add, but one thing we might want to explore a little bit, because I don't think I've used it just yet. Background blurs. Well, actually, I have in the hover effects down here, but I want a much bigger background blur, because you can't have a gaming experience without some sort of a blur, right? So maybe I might want to create like a leaderboard experience up here, just very quickly. I know we have like 3 minutes.
Yeah, we have 3 minutes till the countdown, but those we'll be right back to kind of wrap it up after. But I'm sure you can get a lot done in those 2 minutes.
Oh yeah. Look at that blur. It's just nice. It's soothing.
It's very nice. Oh, good. Shell, you commented again. I get another chance at and not ruining your name. But Shell says, I'm new to XD and I'm very excited to get some projects going. This is such an amazing program. It really is.
It is. It's so user-friendly too.
Yeah, and there's just so many use cases in using it. It's a great program to get started if you are like yourself, just getting started.
Yeah. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to basically put a few bits of information up here. Maybe we'll have the user or username of some sort. Maybe, I don't know exactly what this leaderboard is going to be, but maybe the number of games that they play, for example, or own, how many hours they put into it, and maybe just their total score or points. Again, I have no idea where we're going with this, but you know what? We'll see what happens.
Really will. Rob with another pro tip. Talon was a 2-time state champion in the javelin.
Really? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because Talon's an interesting man, but
100%.
I don't know.
Wouldn't be surprised at all.
He could be watching right now.
Oh, nice. Oh, there's Jesse. Hey, what's up, man? Hi,
Jesse.
You're up in just a little bit. We're hanging out here with Howard making a kick-ass design. Can I say that word on the stream? Who knows?
You can say whatever word you want. I think. I don't know.
Oh. This is the rebel stream. You're the rebel. Howard, we talked a lot about Star Wars on the first stream we ever did. We did. It was a different time. It was.
I don't even remember. It's been a while.
It's been so long. But I think that was my one of my highlights was like how much Star Wars got thrown around. How many Star Wars puns? You made a BB-8 on my stream.
Oh, that's right. The BB-8. That was a lot of fun.
Really, really a different time. All right. Yeah, we're coming up on the artist spotlight, which I'm stoked for. And you can nominate yourself or someone from the community to do this as well. You just check out right above the chat. There's a little artist spotlight tab, and we're gonna get over to do that. Let me just share my screen. Totally forgot that was part of it. Here we go. And we're gonna be highlighting a community member from our Behance Adobe Live community. Really excited.
All right.
Yeah. All righty. So today's We're
gonna bring it up on your screen or mine?
Gonna go on mine. I have
Okay,
it. I have it all
sweet.
ready to go. Yeah, you can keep working on yours. It's Ava Haru Tuyunyan. I butchered that. I'm so sorry. But Ava, congratulations. We want to spotlight you. First off, your banner, I think probably says it all. Creative, impressive, and simple. Ooh.
I like it.
Ooh, love those words. First off, great example of how to use Behance to really amplify your work. We have some great over here. We have some great showcasing of your social links. So if anyone wants to get in touch with you, great job. But yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about this portfolio, which looks awesome.
Yeah, I think it's so important these days to highlight your social pages because, obviously you're sharing a lot on Behance, but a lot of employers like to see your Dribble pages, your LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever it is, how you're sharing these designs and how you're talking about them. Because depending on the position, some of there could be a social aspect to it. So they might want to check out, just see, how you do over there.
Absolutely. So everyone in the chat, go give Ava a follow, and we can check out her work together. First things first. Ooh, a little Tesla work, a little fun. Using Tesla as like your starting brand. I love that. I really think it's an awesome way to kind of get started with having a brand already established, and maybe playing around with their design language a little bit, experimenting. It helps. Not everyone can start from scratch. So this is very cool. Look at this.
Yeah. And I love that section at the very top where it kind of introduces the viewer to what it is that's next, right? Because even though it looks like a watch, assuming that's what it is, but it may not be, right? So by introducing everything, it really sets the stage.
Really does. So looks like you're giving us a couple different screens here. Kind of going to work through, like I said, we're using an already established brand, but you're really taking the liberty and playing around with maybe a variety of colors and treatments, and you're sticking with this very, very cool like geometric kind of pattern around all of your elements here, like all your little buttons. These are pretty cool buttons.
They are. They're kind of futuristic, which is a very Tesla thing. Very
Tesla. So very cool. You got a little app to kind of showcase your superchargers. Maybe there's a little map on your phone. Very cool concept. Yeah. Again, using something that's already been created. Why not? You don't need to start from scratch all the time. Sometimes you do, and there's ways to do that. But
yeah, one thing I love about projects like that is it really helps with the case study portion of it. Right? You're able to say, assuming that this Ava is trying to solve a problem with this, which it looks like this project is, you can convey that to a potential employer and say, I tackled this project because I saw an opportunity to create another application for Tesla and the watch, and here's how I solved it.
It's very cool. Oh, I didn't even see down here. Here we go.
Oh, fancy.
Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. We have some, still carrying over your design language. I really like these. These feel very Star Warsy. Star Warsy.
Val would know.
A little map, a little application map, and here's got some icons we've worked through. Here's your design system. Oh, here we go. Got a little bit of a login. You really thought through this. This is awesome. I love when someone will take a concept to just kind of work through the whole app. Like I can do all these standard spaces like a login screen and whatnot. Those things are important to know that you can do. So
yeah, absolutely.
I appreciate it. Ooh, car documents, love that. I don't have a Tesla, but I think I'd like one.
You should get one.
Do you have one?
I do have one.
Ooh, does it have so are these very Tesla? Do you think these are these kind of in line with keeping your car documents? Is there an app that has that for you already?
There isn't, and Tesla's mobile app on the phone is you can do the basics, but there could be so much more you can do with the app, and there's no Apple Watch app, so something like this would be wonderful to have.
So there you go. So even showcasing that, like maybe Ava has a friend who has a Tesla, maybe she has one too, and they thought through some really good design solutions, which is so cool. I love that. I love knowing that. I wouldn't have known that. I don't have one.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many design ideas you can get in your daily life. Like walking up to your car, for example. Just thinking, I've been in this experience. Walked up to my car. I don't have my phone on me, which is the primary way I unlock my car. But I have my watch. I always have my watch on my wrist. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I can just use my watch to unlock the car instead of my phone if I forgot it? So it's these, if you're paying attention to what you do on a daily basis as you're going through life, you're going to come up with so many design ideas and opportunities to tackle.
Absolutely. Oh, I only wish these were next to each other so we could see them a little bit easier. But very cool. And I agree. It's one of those things where you can find inspiration literally anywhere. And that's what I like already about your portfolio, Ava, is the fact that, yes, you have some Tesla really great use case solutions here, but you also look like you have a good range of variety of problem spaces, which I think that's great. I think, the strongest asset a designer can have is your ability to think through every type of challenge and empathize with every type of user. So awesome. And look at this. Yeah. We have a really cool healthcare app. Wow. I
love these illustrations. Anytime someone includes illustrations in a design, it just looks so fancy and happy.
It really does. This is great. Wow.
I love these icons.
Yeah, I love the approachability you're kind of taking with this healthcare app. It's a hard topic space to make to work with. It can be full of serious things like booking people and making sure insurance is right, and it's important to keep in line with the keeping a tone light, maybe, if that's what you're going with.
Yeah, I was about to say I love the colors on this because anytime you're dealing with medical, you want to be careful with reds and dark colors like that. But these blues and the purplish colors are very soothing. They look really nice.
They really are. This is cool. This is really great. I really appreciate anybody who goes and tries to tackle something like a very complex, like anything in healthcare, essentially.
Yeah.
Any application or any type of system in healthcare is very complicated.
Yeah.
And definitely needs a redesign in ways. So this is really cool.
Yeah, there are even doctors that I've been seeing a lot of doctors lately, but there have been some doctors that I've gone to that they don't use any sort of technology. They don't use apps. They don't use booking system. They literally plop out a binder of papers and they write down my appointment. It's like, what is happening? What century did I get transported to?
I know.
But it's hard. I mean, especially when you're dealing with such sensitive data, it's not.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot of trust for someone like for a doctor, a private doctor, or whomever, because that's not their first job. They're not in it for the technology. They're in it for to help people. And so there's got to be a lot of trust when switching over into a platform. So I think, kudos, big kudos to taking on a challenge, whether it be this is something that actually exists or you wanted a harder challenge. I think it's kudos. Hats off to you. Why don't we check out a creative challenge, because Adobe XD, that's what we're all about.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, a photo challenge.
Back in March. Awesome. Photo changer.
There's a background blur. I mean, you gotta love background blurs. It's subtle, but it's there.
It's there. Oh, here we go.
Oh, more background blurs.
Cool. Let's watch this this challenge. I love this challenge. Whoever gave this challenge. I wonder if anyone can see right away, like, oh, that's a challenge I designed. Like if it was Julian or Jesse or
Yeah, it feels like an Andrea challenge. But I
It
could
does.
be wrong.
I'm sure it is actually. Yeah, there's so many, and this is so great just to see. Look at the breadth of what she was able to kind of do. So many variations of things. Probably just
oh, fancy.
You can see that a little bit better, but this is awesome. Little card swipe. Card swipe back in April, man. I can't wait to see what you do with these updates.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Very cool. Got your challenges all in one. Love it. It's probably how we found you too. And why don't we check out, let's see, anyone you want to check out specifically, Howard?
I'm interested in the Facebook one.
Okay.
I use Facebook once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Jesse says it's not his challenge. I'm going to guess it's Andrea.
Okay.
I use Facebook. I know they recently changed their layout. It's a very different layout. And I don't know if I don't like it or I just haven't gotten used to it yet, but it's interesting. So I love seeing projects like this who try to tackle, Facebook redesign, which is another thing that's just not easy. There's a lot of complexity behind redesigns. A lot of it is data driven, which a lot of people don't realize.
Mm-hmm.
So, I see often very beautiful, like absolutely gorgeous redesigns of YouTube, and Facebook, and LinkedIn, and all these things. And, so many of them, I just want to say, I want this right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. It's a redesign of something that that the general public is so familiar with is really hard. You're always going to get some backlash. I want to play these. I just want to see if there's anything left at the bottom. Okay. Let's just play one of these. Maybe I could just, here, let's do that. Make it very small. Nice. So this is like that. This was the dark mode version, I think, of these up here.
Yeah, and it looks like there was probably scroll groups involved and component states to transition to open up those areas. Stacks would also work with, kind of pushing. It won't work in prototype mode, but you can use the functionality to actually create a state with the expanded view.
This is very cool.
Yeah.
Well, more kudos to taking on the harder challenges, like redesigning something that exists, taking an existing brand, doing creative challenges, which are, you get the day of to complete, and then, trying something completely new, which is, you seem to have so many really great projects. And I love that I'm just gonna look at this one really quick. Do love me some Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there you go. Some gradients.
Oh, fancy gradients.
Nice. Yeah. Just playing around with what's familiar to you. It's a great way to get that practice in, try something new. Kind of helps. And it's great in terms of getting feedback as well, because that's also familiar to whoever's looking at it. So it can really give you some great feedback there. Awesome.
I agree.
Great job. I'm impressed. And if you know anyone in the community that you want to nominate to get highlighted, just like Ava, let us know. Tab right above the chat. And while we're here, let's see, we have a little bit of time. I just wanted to make sure I touch upon the the community fund.
Oh yeah.
And that is something that, Adobe, in light of, all the COVID stuff and artists and everyone finding work, Adobe wanted to make sure they were there for their community. And if you know anybody who is needing funding for a project, or maybe yourself, or you're kind of figuring out what to do next and you are creative, Adobe's got your back. Applications go through the end of 2020 and into 2021, and then funding begins these different days. So come check out the Adobe Creative Residency Community Fund, and that's one way we can all be there for each other. But why don't we use this last bit of time, Howard, and we'll wrap up which we've worked on, and
sure,
kind of say our adieus until tomorrow.
Indeed. So yeah, let's hop back over to my screen. and we'll just do a little bit of continuing of what we worked on. So I was building out this sort of like a, I don't know what you call it, leaderboard experience of some sort. And I want to add a few additional, let me just make sure, there we go. I want to add a few additional lines to this. So I'm going to select all of these line items and repeat grid, just like that. Boop. And now I can just drag out a few more going down this artboard. I don't want too many, but the nice thing that we can do is we can actually just set up a scroll group. So I'll add a few more going down the artboard like that. And then over to the right, I can turn on a scroll group right here. And that will allow me to set basically the window. Just like that. Right, and now if this is visible, I can just scroll down and see all the lovely stuff at the bottom.
Oh, look at that.
Add a bit of spacing down there. That looks better. All right. Now, of course, I need some lovely photos. So one thing, going back to what we were talking about earlier about the CC library update, is that I can now access all of my libraries right here. And I have one called Toy Faces.
Oh, nice.
And these are just incredibly cute and amazing and diverse and wonderful, right? I've just got these great looking faces I can just drag directly into this project, which is wonderful, right?
Oh my gosh. I love those toy faces.
They're so good.
Oh, look at that.
I wish, hopefully somebody in the chat, maybe Val, she's been in some of the streams where I've used them possibly. If someone can find, just look up Toy Faces on Google. I think it's $10 and you get all of these amazing, super high resolution, beautifully custom designed avatars. That's the word I'm looking for. Avatars, right?
Yeah.
It's late. It's getting late.
Avatars. I think they even have a free, like a trial, couple faces you can have.
Oh, fancy.
Yeah. Very cool. Oh man, I love those little guys. And that works really great for, this is, and also, I mean, we also just kind of skirted past this action. You just dropped those right in to your group and they all just fell in line.
Yeah. And one more thing is if I dive in here to the image, you're going to see this link icon at the top. This was because I went to one of my published CC libraries. This asset remains linked to wherever that asset lives, right? So if, again, going back to our design system conversation earlier, if the owner of that document or library makes a change to, this face here, it's just going to update whenever he or she makes that change, which is wonderful.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I want to quickly do two more things possibly, but I want to use this experience that we just designed as a state for maybe the leaderboard link. So I'm going to just copy. Actually, do I have to copy it? I can just drag it, but just make my life easier. I'm going to copy that, go in here. I have the leaderboard link selected. I want to turn this into a component. So I'm going to press the plus button and create a new hover state. And now I can just, I can just open the component, paste it in there, right? Now I want to make sure the links are actually, or the navigation is at the top. There we go. That looks better. And where should I position this? Maybe right about there, right? Now, what you're noticing is that it just kind of split the sea in these links over here, just like kind of flew off to the side. Don't worry too much about that. Because your default state is going to be, did I mess that up? I think I did mess that up. Let me move the links over a little bit.
We're doing it live. It's all live.
Doing it live, right? And I can just...
Oh, look at that.
Now, what I have turned on is Auto-Animate for that particular hover effect. So I'm just going to change it to a transition, no animation, and then that's better.
It's a lot more snappy, a little snappier.
Yeah. Maybe I'll make one more change to this. So inside of this hover state, I might want to just change to our, maybe I don't want to do that. This is the beauty of designing. You have this idea in your head, like, yes, I'm going to do this and it's going to look amazing. And then you do it and you're like, okay, I quit as a designer.
You're like, why do people pay me to do this? How did I get here?
Yep.
One color
Indeed.
change.
Cornell
man.
says, has anyone thought about creating a dress-up game in XD? So I've been actually experimenting with an AR experience on a mirror. It's not there yet. I'm finicky with these things, but maybe we'll do that during the daily challenge that I'm running in 2 weeks.
Very fun, very fun. I've seen a mirror challenge on the Discord, and some people got pretty creative with that, but not a full
Andrea
dress up.
did a great one.
Oh man, those were cool. Yeah, it's all up for grabs. Cornell, why don't you try it out? Try out the thought. Try prototyping something and shoot it over to Howard on Twitter or something. Give him some inspo.
Yeah. All right, we have 5 minutes left, something like that?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Let's create one more section down here, which is maybe like upcoming events or tournaments or something to that extent. And down here, what I want to do is showcase, hopefully in the next some odd minutes, but I want to showcase how stacking and padding Rob says you can get a custom toy face. Can you really? I'm sure that I'm hoping that's a paid service, so to support the author, artist, but I need a toy face.
You definitely need we all need a toy face. Yeah, that's everyone's homework until tomorrow. And tomorrow we will be back. If anyone is wondering, we will be back with Howard Pinsky, and we will all have toy faces, hopefully.
Indeed. Face All is asking, I think leaderboard should be new state instead of hover because that new window is scrollable. So I don't know what you're asking, because there is a scrollable scroll group in here. I don't know. Clarify. Let me know. All right. Let me zip through this quickly. It's always fun racing for time in the last few minutes.
It is. But you know what? We're all here. There's plenty of people in the chat. Jason's asking about a schedule of Adobe Live challenges. Yes, if someone can, if Ludovic or anyone else who wants to, drop the link in the chat for, what is the exact URL again? Is it Behance. That's not good, but I don't know it off the top of my head. Behance.net/challenge/XD.
There you
go. Backslash or slash. Either way. But someone will drop in the chat, check them out. They unlock each day.
Yeah.
And they're fun. They're very, very fun. How's it going? I love designing down to the wire.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it?
Well, you make some things that you're like, how did I make that? Very cool.
I did see someone in the chat ask about the PS5 UI. Yeah, I think we can tackle that tomorrow, probably. I wasn't sure if we were going to get to it today, but we didn't.
It's a gamer stream. We're hanging out. We might as well be playing games. Who knows? Who knows what'll happen? Let's see.
All right, that's looking pretty good. Let me change the bottom to 24. Okay, so now that I have stacks enabled, I can obviously move things around, but I also have padding enabled, so I can just, if I want to add a section down here, I can just do that.
Very nice.
And this could be, what would this section be? Maybe like your friends who have joined this, for example, right?
I love it. Well, we're really coming down to the end. I just want to take a moment and say thank you, Howard, for this awesome stream. Really made something really amazing in the past 2 hours. Something just amazing when you just start working. And we went lo-fi, then we went hi-fi very quickly. But we will be back tomorrow, everyone. And Budavel, thank you for helping out in the chat. We're going to be looking at some more gaming ecosystems, maybe creating, recreating, adding to this one. We're going to have new toy faces. Hopefully everyone has their own custom one by tomorrow. If you stick around to the very end of that stream, who knows? Maybe we'll pull an Oprah and send you a PS5. I'm just kidding. We will not do that.
What?
I'm kidding. Completely kidding.
If we can find one.
But anyways, I just want to say thanks and stick around for the Daily Creative Challenge right after this. It's with Jesse Showalter. He was just hanging out in the chat. Thank you again. Thank you, Hart. Look at this. A button. So many things have happened in the last 2 minutes. This is what happens.
I'm really moving it now.
When you get under harsh constraints, things can happen. And Howard's going to be designing right to the last moment. And I love it. And just thanks everyone for joining us. And we'll see you tomorrow.
Sweet. See you tomorrow, everyone.